just received.
First of all, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's amazing. Great news. I think we've all lived. We know each other while I was just leaving my fighting career, actually,
Yes.
you know, and
Yeah,
at that time I was so curious to absorb as much information to stay at the healthiest I can. So I think you truly deserve your new position as the head of orthopedic department.
Thank you very
at
much.
King Hamad. And how does it make you feel?
Well, it's a bigger responsibility. I mean, as you know, the thing that pulls me towards sports medicine, especially, is my love for the sport, especially combat sports. So, and that dragged me to getting to know you. I mean, orthopedics in general deals with a lot of conditions, but sports medicine is a special field in orthopedics, where you want an athlete with an injury to come back and perform at the level pre-injury. So it's an interesting field. Now, as a head of department, it's a huge burden. Pulled me away from the sports scene. But I'm up to it, and
There's still
with
love
that
for the
mindset
sport.
of an athlete,
Still love for sport is it? See, that's one thing that I always say when I talk about you, right? Like, you have doctors who you go and seek advices from, and get information from, because they have the knowledge and the certifications and everything that they provide, and their designations show that they are capable of these advices. And then there's you, where I was thinking that when I saw this podcast, I don't want to go into anything but just start with, what's your diet plan like? What do you, because you're not a doctor that you take advices from alone, but you are staying in shape, you are staying fit. You might be one of the fittest doctors in the country today, so.
Maybe not anymore, but I'm trying my best to. But prior to being bombarded with all the responsibilities, as you know, I was athletic. I follow a strict diet plan. I update myself when it comes to nutrition science. I try to get involved with most of the sports when it comes to not only injuries, but also the lifestyle of an athlete. Yeah. I mean, it's only right if you are providing service for this specific population to understand their lifestyle, what they go through, what they have to do in order to get to the level they want to reach. Absolutely. So, and just living the lifestyle, it gets you closer to the athletes. It makes you understand their mindset. So yeah, I've been following a diet plan, but recently I've been working, not as busy as you though, but working for long hours, and but I still I try my best to stay in shape and follow somewhat healthy diet.
And when you talk about diet, I think one of the challenges I faced when I was training and competing was over information. I don't know if that's the right word, but a lot of information about what diet to follow. So there was the only meat paleo diets, and then there's keto diets, and then there's different kinds of diet, and they say these might, and there's also good and bad about it. There's information out there what to say that it's not for athletes. It might affect your performance and a lot of things. So how do we as athletes at some level, like when you look at the science behind this, because today I was just talking to a WBO world former WBO world boxing champion, Lawrence, and we just had a podcast today. So when I was talking to him, and we were talking about how much the sports has evolved in training side, and before it was like hundreds of hours of bags, hundreds of hours of running, and today it's like, you got to put at least 70% of your training focused on science, The science is a big part of it. But at the same time, so much of scientific information that's out there, starting from the diet, the most basic, what do I eat, what do I consume? And then there's always, you just need to search, somebody says it's the best diet, and then you search, why is this diet not good? And you'll get as many
Thousands
information,
of
right? How do you deal with that?
The science of nutrition in general is probably the number one imprecise science that is not consistent. It just keeps on changing. A better understanding of the body's physiology is something that I think is crucial for anyone that gives advice to nutrition and diet plans for athletes. Um, Now, athletes focus, yes, on diet. Training it has evolved the concept of periodizing the training and the diet in order for the athlete to peak where the competition, when the competition is. That's where the maximum performance is required. So, in my opinion, athlete-centered education is very important, and what I've been through really helped me in terms of education and the exposure I got with athletes. It helped me a lot in order to focus the information that I deliver to the athletes I treat. A major part of the service that I provide as a surgeon is to athletes, especially those that are involved in combat sports. Now, understanding the lifestyle of a combat sports athlete is very important, and I know athletes always want to be the best. There's the famous Goldsman's dilemma. Athletes will do anything, will take anything just to be the best, even if it takes from their life. You want to make sure that what you say to an athlete is something that he'll benefit from, and not cause any repercussions, God forbid, in the future. So when it comes to nutrition, an athlete should understand the basics of nutrition, but should also understand that the sport sometimes pushes the athlete to areas of taboo, where you might need to do things that might affect your health, but because they're focused, that tunnel vision that shows them only the fight. That is what you should always warn the athlete to always make sure that the step you're taking forward is for your good in terms of the sport and also your health after.
Would you say that it's better to have, when you're looking at diet specifically or nutrition, you have to have a athlete-specific study to get the best out of it?
Studies can never be consistent. You can't standardize everything when it comes to. I mean, the genetic part alone is it's variable between athletes. Let alone the other things in life that you can't really standardize and have them consistent with that group that you want to study. Hence the imprecise nature of nutrition science. But focusing on combat sports, I always tell the athlete, your main concern is your weight, but then your performance is also something important. And the weight of the athlete, I mean, athletes in combat sports, they want to manage their weight, and they always get lost prior to the competition. I've witnessed that with Brave Combat when the athletes come and they try their best to cut all that weight in a very short period of time. I mean, the concept of chronic weight management and acute weight loss is not there. They should know that duration of time you're away from the cage, it doesn't mean that you should just let everything go. Sure. You should make sure that you're at that certain margin where you don't want to go over or under. And the acute weight loss that they do, there are measures that they should really consider. I mean, in the hospital, we learned in medicine or medical school that if you lose this much % of water, you're dehydrated, you're sick, you get to be admitted. Now, you diagnose dehydration at 3%. I mean, you go way beyond that in combat sports. So if you're going to push your body to physiologies that are very hard, make sure you know what you're doing and you got the right people around you when you do it. But the chronic weight management is a very important part as well. When you're off season and you're training, but you're not prepping for a competition or you're not prepping for a fight, make sure you know where your weight is, yes. How much muscle you're gaining. That's also on a scale is going to affect your performance. So these, let's say, broad titles are things that you have to engrave in the head of the athlete before they consider going to like higher levels of the sport.
The knowledge is so less, right? I mean, the issue with a lot of guys are they're all professional athletes, who are training day and night, so focused on their career, and they still, but consciously, they want to be at a weight because so that I can be 8 to 9 kgs heavier than the opponent after the fight, after the weigh-ins. The next
Yes.
day, when I get into the cage, I gotta be much more heavier than he thinks. He's gonna be shocked looking at me when he sees me in the cage. That's not
Yes.
the guy he saw when I was weight cutting. I mean, that's what they want to do. But that's the knowledge they have because it sounds really good because a heavier guy is always going to be tougher to wrestle with. So that basic sporting knowledge exists. But sometimes you might gain that weight, but you're not performing still at the right form, you know? So why aren't they performing if they are heavier at that weight? What's that process of cutting weight? And you're right, people, we all think of cutting weight the shortest time because, again, we've got this science in our head that we've
Yeah, yeah,
learned from our gyms, you know,
yeah,
where we
yeah.
come back and we're like, the shorter the shorter time you take to cut weight, the better for you. But at the same time, shorter you lose water, shorter time you keep your body dehydrated, it's better. One, and two, the most amount of weight you lose in that span of time, you will gain that faster. But the ones you lose in 3 4 months, that's not going to come back to you. So you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
this is only science some of the athletes from the gym we have. You know?
But they should also understand if you lose a lot of weight in a very short period of time, yes, it's going to affect you. But even longer period of times, like chronic weight management, if you allow your body, for example, you've mentioned diet plans that might affect an athlete, such as a keto diet or a high protein, high fat, low carbohydrate diet. Don't forget, an athlete will require that explosive performance. That explosive energy is only something you get from breaking down carbohydrates that you store in your muscles. Yes, you refed after the weigh-ins, but you've trained your body to not use that pathway for a very long period of time during your chronic weight management. Enzymes are very important. The enzymes in your body that function in breaking down sugars to pyruvate, small molecules, and that pyruvate dehydrogenase enzyme. There's a very well-known paper that talks about how this enzyme dysfunctions if you train it not to work. So that's why the athletes that do keto diets for a long period of time, I got a contract, 3 months, I got to be ready, let me cut the carbohydrates. Well, the night of the fight, you can fill up your glycogen stores, come break it down for energy. It doesn't give you that explosive energy or that explosive muscle contraction that you want when you're wrestling an athlete. You want to take down an athlete. You feel that cramp in your muscle. It's because your enzyme is not functioning well. So that chronic weight management, the concept of managing your weight should be meticulously studied. The body we are omnivores. We eat everything. So don't deprive your body from a certain source of energy just because it makes you lose weight faster. You want carbohydrates. You want your body to fill up your glycogen stores after the fight, but you want to use that glycogen. So that's one of the points that I've noticed with athletes that say, no, I'm going to go with a high protein diet. I'll be on a carnivore diet. I'll restrict my carbohydrates. You want the carbohydrates for explosive muscle contractions. Also, endurance level.
Yeah.
Athletes that want to perform at a high level have to be good enough to stay for 5 rounds. But for you to be peak for 5 rounds, you need to train your body and feed your body to be able to function at a high level for that period of time. So oxidation of fats is what gives you that potential. So you want your muscle tissue to adapt to that. Our body is so smart in adapting. I mean, the science is still evolving when it comes to epigenetics. Sure. Of course, you know. And we can modify our genes. Even if you're not genetically gifted, you can modify your genes if you're doing it the right way.
No, that's. I mean, that itself is a great news, right? I mean, you modify your genes, that's amazing news because a lot of things people put it on. This is my genes. You know, this could be the reason why I am the way I am. You know, and that's been one of our greatest excuses in life, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but at the same time, that's why a lot of athletes and coaches actually, if you think about it, you know, they look at athletes and they judge the athletes. They're not doctors, they're not experts, but they, of course, they judge them and say, you know what? I don't have time to think about the science, but that's how I look at him. This guy is not an explosive guy. This is how his body looks like. So we train him a different way. but that training or that style of fighting is not really the way he wants to fight. He's not good at that. He might not have the power in his hands as much, but he's still that guy who's more endurance focused and not more explosive. So you have this idea that, hey, you know what, he's born with that fast twitch fibers and the fast twitch muscles, and the other one is with the slow twitch muscles. So, but I also thought that you could change the percentage of your body's fast twitch and slow twitch muscles.
Correct.
Is that true?
Yeah, you're 100%. You can allow your body to adapt. Our body was made to adapt, but it might vary from one person to another how fast you adapt, and it might differ of how structurally gifted you are. For example, there are some certain ethnic groups are better in performing endurance sports. For example, yes, that's let's say a mechanical advantage they get.
Sure.
However, you can still have a lot of things that can help you, let alone the environment, the diet, and the coaching. You can modify your genetics. The epigenome is something beautiful. You can allow your genes to adapt to the environment you live. You allow your body to live through, and that can only come if you do the proper things, the proper training, the proper diet, the proper progression, and that will allow your body to slowly adapt. But it needs time and discipline. And the sport of MMA itself, I've seen athletes, but MMA fighters are different.
Yeah.
The amount of discipline required, you're talking about a 24-hour sport. It's not only the time of fight.
Absolutely. And the adaptation or the modification of genes, what would be the top 3 or 4 criteria within that you think are going to be crucial for genes modification? Let's say, is the diet, the training, or what are those basic components?
So the science of epigenetics is a new concept, and the twin study done by NASA is the one that really expressed most of the science in it in literature. But the whole concept behind it is the process of something called methylation that requires your body to go through certain metabolic pathways that will give it that potential, that edge. Hence the importance of vitamin Bs, for example. There are certain genes, and I can label one, you can read about it. It's called MTHFR. One of the vitamin Bs is important in triggering that pathway, and this pathway is responsible for allowing your body to play around with the methyl group. And believe it or not, 60% of our population on planet Earth don't have that, or have an issue with the gene. Either don't have it or underexpress it. So if you notice, the newer supplements that have vitamin Bs are all methylated, methylcobalamin, methyl tetrahydrofolate, etc. So this pathway, if it is a part of your regimen, you take your supplements and make sure that your vitamin Bs are there, they're methylated. You've helped a major part of the methylation process. You've made it easier for your body to recover and heal and build. So it's like small things in diet can affect big things in performance. The science of nutrition, yes, is, as I've mentioned earlier, is imprecise, but there are things that are cardinal when it comes to metabolism. So a lot of athletes don't understand the importance of nutrition. Just focus on the big things. Am I eating enough protein? Am I shedding enough fat? But your performance and your adaptation are things that are very important for you as an athlete.
And they're also talking a lot about now you see a very, let's say, a little bit of what's going viral. It's also the anti-aging side of things, where they're talking about NACs, NADs, metformin, all that stuff, So I think NAC is a form of vitamin B as well.
Yes. Niacinamide is a vitamin B, basically. And it is important in a lot of things, like, for example, the simplest, temperature regulation in your body requires it. Lactate fermentation, taking all this lactic acid buildup. Yeah. We don't build up lactic acid, we build up the hydrogen that comes out of this process. So the lactate fermentation process is different between someone that can regulate these vitamins properly or someone that doesn't. So yes, I've seen athletes that know it's important. I mean, I'm surprised you know a lot about it. But the
I'm
thing
trying
is,
to look younger. That's why.
but it has a major role. But how to deliver it and how to make sure you got the right concentrations is something that's still being explored.
Yeah, definitely. There was one of this scientists, I forgot his name, but he was one of the biggest advocates for NMN, NADs. So he was like, because a lot of people don't understand, because when you are saying something, there's a lot of research that goes behind it. You know,
Yes,
there's
exactly.
a lot of research that goes behind it. But then there are people think that, okay, but why don't you have the research on this? You know, and you're like, sometimes there's no funding to make the research happen, you know, and it's not like any new idea comes in and somebody's going to put the funding in to do that research on hundreds of people, you know. So there is those little basic problems that doesn't look like a problem at a bigger level, but
Yeah.
that is simply the reason why we haven't got those researches yet, and you can't do that for every different ideas or thoughts that a doctor or a scientist comes up with. But
But what we know for sure is that an athlete, if you are fighting oxidation, you're a better athlete. If you're fighting inflammation, you're a better athlete. But when to fight inflammation is when you don't want to adapt. When do you fight oxidation? Same thing. Uh, Oxidative stress is a big burden on your body.
when you say oxidative stress, is that the lactic acid production which produces the hydrogen from?
Oxidative stress is something that comes from free radicals, and the free radicals are higher when you expend a lot of energy, for example.
Okay.
So when you have a lot of oxidative stress, not because you're cutting weight, you're not sleeping enough, the stresses in general raise that oxidative stress. So taking antioxidants makes you, plus longevity, it makes you perform better, makes your nerves regenerate better. So especially in sports where your nervous system is engaged and your nervous system is under a lot of insult too, like headshots, etc. So antioxidative supplementation and making it part of your diet is something that helps you as an athlete too. Now, when do you take large quantities of antioxidants? When to slow down on taking them is also important. Your body wants to adapt. Muscles, the muscle units, the small muscle units, they have to go through a lot of stress. A part of it is oxidative stress for it to adapt and get stronger. Now, when you bombard your body with fighting all the inflammation and the oxidation, you're depriving it from very important part of the process. If you don't allow your body to live that metabolic stress it has to go through, your muscle and your body does not live the experience that requires it to get better and stronger and faster, etc. So antioxidants and anti-inflammatory supplements or nutrition is something that you want to perfectly place in which part of your training, which part of your day, and even if you're considering developing more, when should I take them and how much? These are really major questions that there are answers to. They're a bit variable, but there are a lot of answers to all these
And
questions.
that's the thing, right? I mean, when I used to be a fighter, that's different. But today, I'm just a normal man,
Yeah.
walking outside, living my life. And I want to stay as healthy as an athlete, you know? And there's so much information. Like, we're talking about antioxidants, we're talking about when we're focusing on one thing, and then you're like, hey, are you looking at your gut health, you know? And then what about your probiotics? And that's something you have to look into as well. And then finally, we reached a point where, like, how's your cell nutrition and your cell health? Because you're talking about hydration, but then if your cells are not strong enough and they can't absorb the hydration from the water, that's going to be another issue. So now people are talking about, are you really looking at your essential fatty acids and your minerals? Are you really focusing on that? Are you really getting what you're looking at? Or are you just going and getting a hydrate drink from somewhere else and thinking that that's going to hydrate me, you know? But so there's so much information there. But for a normal person, let's say we're not an athlete, as a normal person, what are those things that we should, in our normal life, that we focus on? We need to have antioxidants.
We need to, definitely, antioxidants should be a part of your
Diet.
daily diet and supplementation. Anti-inflammatory. Inflammation, all the trouble you get in life when it comes to health are secondary to inflammation. There's some inflammation somewhere. Cardiac health. colon cancer. There are big titles that we're all at risk of. Just simply following an anti-inflammatory diet is one of the things that pushes all those things away from you,
From the supplementation as well as the diet.
as well as diet. Our part of the world, we use a lot of spices in our food, and that itself is a lot of anti-inflammatory. But the fats that we eat, however, are pro-inflammatory. So there are good things in your diet that you can maintain, there are things that you can avoid. The fats that are pro-inflammatory are really toxic to your body. So staying away from them. And especially the sugars, the refined sugars, when they go into your body, they're just bad fats again. So trying to make sure that you've covered that part makes you live healthier.
Yeah, but this is best source of energy more than carbs is fat. Where do you stand on that?
The best energy source is definitely fat. It's slow, it's efficient. A small quantity of fat will give you a lot of energy as opposed to carbohydrates. However, the fats as a structure has an effect on your body. There are fats that are pro-inflammatory,
Okay.
and there are fats that are anti-inflammatory. The ones that are anti-inflammatory are the ones that you want to focus on. The ones that go through a pathway that end up with omega-3, for example. But the pro-inflammatory ones, the ones that your body needs when you perform as an athlete, arachidonic acid is a fatty acid that your body requires to trigger the inflammatory pathway that you get every time you train. But then if your nutrition is also full of that fat, that trigger that pathway, so your body does not exit the inflammatory process. And all that subclinical inflammation, you don't have any symptoms, but your body just lives it. That inflammation also has sequelae. Your body will end up doing things to to itself that are harmful.
Yeah.
It affects the vessels, it affects the heart, it affects the lungs, it affects the liver, etc. So nutrition, looking at the micros in diet is important. Macros are important, but micros are a little bit more important. Like, yeah, I know you have to cover your fats, but what source of fats are you eating? Are you taking the good fats or the fats that are harmful for you? So making sure that you have the right balance in between both. That's also as important, if not more important.
So we have the antioxidants, so important. Anti-inflammatory is very important. Probiotics.
Probiotics are definitely important.
Important.
But the probiotics are, I mean, they're normal flora that live in our body. Like nutrition is for you and the things that live in you. But if you don't feed them well, they're just as good as not being there. So not only the probiotics, but the prebiotics that they require. So the supplementation with symbiotics is a new concept. Having the probiotics with their food. You take the bacterium with the food that it eats. And that will ensure that it functions properly. It does the things that you want them to do in your body. And they live in a proper balance where the bad ones don't exceed the ones that are good.
What's an example of that we could have?
Any supplement that says symbiotics is a perfect combination. So you don't have to do the searching and what should I eat with this probiotic. So they come in combination, the probiotics you require and the supplement and the food or the supplementation they need.
Okay.
So symbiotics is, my opinion, is an easier way to supplement yourself with probiotics. Instead of eating probiotics and your gut health doesn't improve, symbiotics will just ensure that the probiotics are active, living bacterium that are functioning the way they should be.
Oh, perfect. I got to note all this down and start use them list by list. Yeah, we're good. But one important thing, talking about diet, we're talking about the muscles and the veins and everything else. But then, as an orthopedic, bones are bones, you know.
Yes.
And I've had a very bad history with bones, you know, in my whole life. You
Comes
know,
with MMA, man.
yeah, I've always had this issue. So the thing I was because when we there's two things. One is the weight, right? So you you shred yourself, you're 10 to 15% body fat, and you're looking at yourself and you're like, you look like a skinny person, you know. But then you're going and fighting a person at the same weight class as you, and he looks much more bigger. And then there's a statement that says that's bone weight.
I, I, I think that's incorrect. Bone cannot be that much different from one patient to another. Believe me, I've seen it from the inside.
Yeah.
but yet the what you store in your muscle is different. Your capability of storing glycogen and water into muscles is something that will make you look significantly different. Probably that athlete loaded in a different way, and his body knows how to load up to 80% or 70% of the glycogen stores in the muscle, as opposed to someone that cannot even reach 30% or 50%. Gut health is important. If you allow your gut to absorb the nutrients you're eating and deliver that through the circulatory system to the muscles, that's another factor that plays a role. And they probably eat the same loading diet, but one loads and fills the muscle, the other doesn't.
But you could be the same weight class, and you could definitely look different for sure. But one look much more bigger than the other while being on the same weight class. I mean, you weigh in, and they are the same weight.
Yeah, the gut has weight, the skeleton has weight, and the muscles have weight. So how his skeleton is shaped, yes, they can differ, but how much weight difference will there be from a patient, let's say an athlete of 80 kilograms and another of 80, and they both stand next to each other, but you see one looks significantly bigger, even if they're the same height. There can be structural differences. We can't throw all of that to bone weight.
Bone weight.
Yeah.
But then bone density varies from.
Bone density varies in age group. In my opinion, it doesn't vary within the same age group unless there's a disease. But their gut and their muscle is also a major part of the weight.
So we used to hear when we were young, you drink milk to have a stronger bone.
No, I don't think so.
All right.
Milk is also it's a very good source of calcium. Your body knows how to get calcium, and our diet is full of it. It doesn't. Every living creature has calcium in it, and calcium is the second highest concentration in all beings. So if we want to take calcium through dairy products or non-dairy products, your body knows how to get it. It has an active way of doing it. It has a passive way of doing it. Vitamin D is a more active way of absorbing calcium. Those that are deficient might have low calcium levels in their bones. Hence the disease of rickets in children and osteoporosis in elderly. But for athletes, do they need to supplement I've seen a lot of athletes, they come with joint pain. Oh, you need to take some calcium. That's not correct. Your joints are probably worn out because you're not feeding the joints.
And what is glucosamine with
Exactly,
MSM?
yes. That's glucosamine sulfate is the best compound. Glucosamine itself is important, and evidence has shown it really pushes the cartilage to regenerate.
Okay.
So, and the remodeling process of cartilage, if you're feeding your cartilage, it regenerates. Anti-inflammatory, antioxidants, plus supplementation with glucosamine, chondroitin, all these important ingredients of a healthy cartilage with the proteins, that builds all the good cartilage you want. Amino acids are important as well. Glycine, the amino acid, also triggers pathways that make your cartilage stronger. So calcium is important for bones, but at an athlete's level, at the age group of a high performance athlete, calcium is not one of the things you want to supplement yourself with, because your food should already have enough.
Yeah. But I'm sure you've been part of this MMA world for a long time, and we've seen some historic events in mixed martial art. Was when Conor McGregor actually had a crazy injury in one of his fights. But we also saw something similar happen in Brave Combat Federation here in Bahrain when we saw Hussein Aljowder when he was fighting.
Yes.
And and that was crazy to just for me, I was just sitting there and the crowd was silent because it was just the beginning of the fight, just watching what's going on. So the crowd was quiet and you could hear tap,
click.
Yeah, and you could hear that. And
That
but
moment of the fracture happened.
there's two thoughts on that. One, we as the sports side of it, where we say that you have the flat part of your shin, and it's like looking at a ruler or scale. Like if you hit the scale as hard as you want this way onto another pointed part, it doesn't break. But when you do this and hit it, that's when
Absolutely
it breaks.
right.
So your shin, the flat part, when you don't turn your hip and you don't get that front line, which is the sharp part to kick, if that's flat, kicking on the shin, that could be one of the reasons for the crack.
That's how bones fracture. The direction of vector, the force, whatever direction it goes, it defines how the fracture pattern is going to happen.
Yeah.
So the bones, by definition in medicine, we call bone as viscoelastic. They're elastic, they can resist bending, and they're viscous too, to a certain degree. But at a certain angle, you can lose all of that. They can be as brittle as glass. So that direction of force at that moment caused the fracture. As you mentioned exactly, very, very well described, is where the force is going. If it hits that sharp edge or it hits that flat surface, that defines how the fracture, whether the fracture will happen or not. When he fractures his tibia, I still remember that day, he fractured his tibia, his leg bone, and it was a clean fracture. However, that will significantly slow down an athlete. We had to take him to the hospital and fix his bone with a rod. However, until it heals, that's some time that slow down the athlete. Doesn't mean that his bone is weak. It's not necessarily his bone, but the position of his leg at that certain part of the fight. So it comes with the sport.
Yeah.
MMA, all evidence. There are a lot of evidence now with the sports of combat sports in general. MMA, exact. The latest evidence says that the lower limbs are the third region of the body that gets injured. Upper limb comes before that, and then of course the head and neck.
Sure.
So head, neck, upper limb, and then the leg. These are regions that happen by default. You want to go into MMA, expect the injuries.
Yeah.
Now,
And just to touch on that itself, we used to, like, I come from a striking background, so I spent a lot of time fighting, training in Thailand. And we used to do something that was very strange that we didn't see in other martial arts, is spend a lot of time either having a rod that we brush through our shin bone, or we use the cloth that is wet and hit on our shins, or different formats. There are people who take a wood and tie ropes on that and then smash your shins with it. I love the tire work, so I used to use a tire and start kicking the tires. But the idea, I don't know, but a lot of people are like, that's how you make your shin bone stronger.
makes the whole envelope around the bone stronger.
Okay, and how does that happen? So, is it the idea of microfractures?
Correct.
And you leave the microfracture and it grows back and it becomes bigger?
The bone would definitely grow thicker in that area. But not only that, rubbing something hard on the skin will allow the skin to also adapt. It becomes less sensate, doesn't feel the pain. The buildup of scar tissue will also help protect the shin. So that practice would actually make you stronger. It will thicken the bone. And I've seen athletes do it, and it actually works. I've read a few review articles that talk about this practice in upper extremities and lower extremities, and actually makes the bone thicker. The cortex of the bone, bones that are pipe-shaped, like the leg bone, thigh bone, the upper limb bones, those bones, the bigger the diameter, the more they resist bending. And the bending is a sequelae of the kick. So if you make your cortex, the bone cortex, the walls of the bones, the thicker they are, the more they can resist bending.
So the bone structure, when you say it's thicker, the bone structure, whatever the bone structure is currently for the shin bone, they're in form of cells, and then you fracture them or microfracture them, and then they combine together. And when they grow back, they become a bigger cell-looking.
Oh, the cells are the cellular part of the bone is very minute, but when you trigger that injury, or when you cause that injury, it triggers a pathway of signals that allow certain cells in your bone to build more bone. And this is what we get in athletes that hit a certain part of their body more, like athletes that go with their fists when it comes to fighting. Sure. Their fifth bone is slightly thicker than the rest of the bones in the hand. And if you look at the lower extremities of those that do mixed martial arts, their lower extremity, their legs are their bones, the tibias are thicker than the rest of the population, and that is because of that microfractures you mentioned. Microfractures are signaling pathways that happen to cause more building, and yes, the bones grow thicker, and that resists bending, and that's why Muay Thai athletes. And if you look at the angle of their kicks, it's different.
Yeah, of course.
And they can tolerate it.
Yeah.
It makes their bones bigger.
No, absolutely. And one place I don't know if like you talk about the muscles and we talk about the shin bones and all the bones, but joints are the most scariest parts. I mean, I've had multiple shoulder surgeries myself, so I know that I don't know how do you fully recover from a joint injury and back to 100%?
Joints. I mean, the subdivision of sports medicine is joint regenerative medicine or joint regeneration, and the major concept of sports medicine is joint preservation. There are a lot of unanswered questions when it comes to joints, because especially the cartilage. Cartilage cannot regenerate. It's the only part of the skeleton that has an unanswered question. Our liver is forgiving. We have cells in our body that can easily regenerate when they're damaged. But our joints, they don't have that potential. So it's always advisable for athletes to maintain healthy cartilage in order to prevent cutting their career short just because of losing a joint. The shoulder joint is a forgiving joint, but at the level of an athlete, it's always going to be an obstacle. So is there an answer to the damaged ligaments or damaged cartilage? Yes, to a certain degree, but regenerative medicine is helping now. It's a new field of medicine that we're trying to explore when it comes to joints. But when the joint is damaged, it's always something that will really affect the athlete.
Yeah, and that's the challenge, right? I mean, when we had, there's always that new medicine that comes in. So when I had some of my injuries, the PRP was big at that time. We're talking about a long time back. So, and we had this hope that this is going to rebuild and grow all the ligaments back in, and it was never at that level. I mean,
and it never reached. Platelet-rich plasma, PRPs, the whole concept of taking all these growth factors from your body and putting them back in an injured area that is poorly perfused, that doesn't have enough blood supply, and you inject the PRP hoping that it regenerates. There's all the evidence shows that doesn't happen. Yes, it builds an anti-inflammatory environment, maybe suppresses the pain for some time, but does it allow your joints to regenerate? Even injecting stem cells now, stem cells do need to live in a proper medium that allows them to function as stem cells. So injecting them in the vicinity of a joint did not give us much results. Maybe with some studies it gave relatively okay results, but didn't reach the level where you can comfortably tell an athlete, get injured, we can fix you later. Yeah. If that can be answered, that will solve a lot of issues when it comes to sports medicine.
So best thing to tell the young athletes who are up and coming is, guys,
be
prevention.
Safe.
Prevention and
exactly.
Healthy cartilages and prevention. So if you're looking at the prevention and having a healthy cartilage, what would that look like?
Being safe, first of all, being ready to join a sport is as important. Joint health is very important for athletes. They should progress gradually. Be safe. Be right when you're choosing your coach. You're choosing the regimen you're following, and in combat sports, I mean, if you need to tap out, tap out.
Yeah.
That's a major issue. I mean, you don't fight it, your joints will suffer forever.
Absolutely.
I've seen athletes that lost their extension at the age of 20, 25. Their elbow is not functioning as a joint anymore.
You've seen the last fight of Mohamed Makayev when he got the knee bar.
I mean,
His knee was.
I've seen it. I mean, yes, it tells you how strong he is mentally, but his knee hated him that day. I mean, I saw the images later on, and let's just say his knee's been through a lot.
He had a partial ACL tear, if I'm not mistaken.
CL and a lot of other injuries as well. I don't know if he wants us to talk about it, but I mean, that was really painful. It was very painful.
And Hamza Koji, he just had a knee surgery with you.
Yes, he was trying to avoid it at first, but I mean, ligaments are there for a reason. They're stabilizing your joints. You can't.
So
live.
what was his situation?
So he came in with an unstable knee. His anterior cruciate ligament was completely torn. His knee is unstable, and that will only jeopardize the health of your joint. I mean, you can live without an ACL, but your joint won't function normally. You're jeopardizing everything around the knee, just because that knee is not going to be stable. So I needed to first convince him to get the procedure done, and then we went with the latest approach to get the ACL the right place. Utilize the whatever soft tissue we can preserve to allow the ligaments to recover fast, and it went well. But to convince him it was a bit hard headed in the beginning. It was like, your joint is not stable. Let me exercise a little bit. The stronger, even if you build up bodybuilder thighs, your knee is still going to be unstable.
Because there's a lot of people that's out there, right, who says that you don't have to, you don't have to. You could strengthen it and we can get it back all.
It will heal. The ACL, if you tear an ACL, it will always heal. Your body has that pathway that will always work. You tear something, your body triggers the building pathways. But the building pathways will ensure continuity of the ligament, but it will not guarantee stability. All right. And in an ACL case, you're in a dynamic environment. The knee will not stop moving. So it's not the right environment for a ligament to heal exactly where it should be. And it's floating in a joint. So it always requires reconstruction. So, and that's the answer I give to every athlete that says, but I read some evidence that says the ligament goes into the continuity again. There are a lot of evidence out there you'll find that tell you that, but none of the evidence will tell you it's a stable knee. So stability is never guaranteed, and with a complete ACL tear, there's nothing to guide the ligament to the direction where the collagen fibers need to orient themselves. So an ACL reconstruction is a must. If you send this message to any athlete, you tear the ACL, get it done before you lose the rest of the joint. It's guaranteed. Next year you have arthritis.
Oh, and for joint health, when you're looking at the diet or supplementation, how do you keep them fit? In terms of, is there exercises that can strengthen the?
A cartilage adapts like the rest of the body, but it's really slow. It's very stubborn. It's very slow, and it takes a power lifter ages to have thicker cartilage, and an endurance athlete ages to have a wider surface of cartilage. But for those short term, nothing will happen. Long term, healthy diet, maintaining the right supplements. If you feed your muscle, feed your joints as well. Joints need a healthy anti-inflammatory, antioxidative diet and environment in the knee to recover. Inflammation is what causes all the bad breakdown in the joints. So, and I've said that multiple times in our talk now. Nutrition plays a major role in having a healthy, strong musculoskeletal system. And I've repeated it again and again: antioxidation, anti-inflammatory diet, and a proper, well-balanced diet where you focus on all the macros of nutrition. All of these will guarantee a healthier body, a better functioning body. Here and there you'll see diets, the carnivore diet surged for some time, the keto ages ago. All these new inventions, yes, your body will respond to whatever you allow it to go through, But will that respond be the best performance, best health? But the easiest way to look at it is you're made as an omnivore. Your teeth are designed to bite in the front and cut meat and shred meat on the sides and to crush vegetables in the back and carbohydrates. So this is how your body is designed. Don't do something other than that. Yeah. Follow a well-balanced diet.
Yeah. And when you're looking at antioxidants, what would you say is like the best antioxidant currently that's being underrated or not being used so much? I mean, in our part of the world at least.
Glutathione. Glutathione is the master antioxidant. Your body needs 3 pathways to make it. And if it makes it, it doesn't make enough for someone that wants to push it to limits. So glutathione is the best, only major antioxidant. Everything anything that's labeled as a vitamin has some antioxidative capacity, but the strongest in fighting all the oxidative stress in your body is glutathione. You need a healthy liver to produce just enough to live, but enough to perform at peak levels. Glutathione is the only antioxidant that your body would appreciate. However, if you eat it, it's not going to reach as glutathione.
Okay.
However, if you supply your body with the amino acids, the right amino acids that it requires, there are essential amino acids, non-essential your body can make, and some that are relatively essential that your body can sometimes get from either pathways in the body or from nutrition at other instances. Cysteine is a major part of the glutathione pathway.
Okay.
Cysteine is an amino acid. Cysteine is available in nutrition. Your body can sometimes make enough, but if you supplement yourself, like the N-acetylcysteine supplement,
okay, yeah,
that gives you that edge of pushing your liver to producing enough glutathione. Taking it intravenous is
it's more like a precursor to glutathione.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
So it's glutamate, glycine, and cysteine, the 3 amino acids combined in a certain way that gives you glutathione. But glutathione itself, as an now intravenous, the commercially available in a lot of wellness, longevity clinics, they do give that intravenous. It's really important for those that live a very stressful lifestyle to provide that for their body. Now, when to take as an athlete, you don't want to take it when you're trying to allow your body to adapt. If you're trying to peak, it's not with you, it's against you. But when your mitochondria are full of oxidative stress, you want to clean that out before you perform, that's ideal. So the ideal scenario is you cleaning all the engines and make sure all the engines are ready to start producing energy. But you don't want the engines to be clean when you're trying to make them evolve and get better.
Yeah, and do you think that people who are not in the combat sports training lifestyle, they should be having glutathione as well? I mean,
I think fighting oxidation is very important for an athlete, for their well-being in general. Whatever they do in combat sports is stressful to the body and is full of oxidation. The training, the nutrition, the weight cuts, the fights, all that is stress, and all this stress comes with oxidative stress and a lot of inflammation. So, and the nervous system is the insult to the brain. The nerves need an anti-inflammatory and an antioxidative environment to become better.
Yes.
So all this insult to the nervous system, the concussion, the post-traumatic injuries you get to the brain, all of that over time will get back to you. So you want to make sure you follow the right lifestyle to make sure that life after MMA is going to be as good as MMA.
Absolutely. And when you talk about that part of the world, I mean, there's new set of coaches and belief that they say that we're just having the same conversation with Lawrence previously, when I was asking that there's two school of thoughts today where they say that we're not going to spar in the gym anymore. No more sparring in the gym because yes, you do fight and you do get punched on the head, but that's once every 3 months. Most of the things happen in the gym, the hours and hours of rounds of sparring that you do, and you just keep taking those punches. If they are sparring in a smart and technical way, but if not, if they're looking for going and punching each other's head out, that's going to be happening as well. So the amount of damage that they take during the training and then the fights is not really the one that's actually going to give them the real damage. But where does that stand? One, my question would be, how do you deal with it post career? How do you even look at preventing that? Of course, don't spar is a good idea to start.
Yeah.
Good place to start from. But at the same time, when you're looking at concussion in itself,
Oh,
is
concussion.
is that something that we've seen the movie The Concussion as well? I mean, that was crazy that how people didn't talk about it previously, but but is there a way to control it? Is there a way that if you've
mean,
gone too far?
In the world of MMA, AIBA in the world of boxing, that's the major thing that that needs to be discussed, and you need to protect the athletes too. Concussion, post-traumatic brain injury, are things that really jeopardize the well-being of athletes. You can't treat the brain like the leg. You can insult the leg and become stronger, but you hit the brain does, the regenerative potential of the nervous system is not as great. If it was that great, we would never have paralyzed people, we would never have people that have long-term disabilities. So maintaining a healthy nervous system is very important, starting with the brain. So the hits you get in the head and the neck are the highest in all combat sports. Protecting that region, as you've mentioned, sparring can be done in different ways. I mean, headgear at least. I mean, athletes take it lightly because they can survive a few years without seeing any damage with the people around them in the gym.
Yeah.
But the ones you want to see are those that were in the gym 30, 40 years ago. Those are the ones you want to ask the questions to. Those are the ones that will really tell you how much damage it caused them. The cognitive part only is major. The memory loss, the imbalances they get, the coordination issues that they have, is all because of that repetitive insult to the brain that you can easily avoid. You can take the hits, like you mentioned, inside the cage, but when you're not in the cage, why have to go through this? Sure. Why get injured?
And once you did, let's say, go through it, is there today a faster way to recover compared to previous?
Regenerative science, they're trying their best. There's no straight answer. Nutrition science, yes, you can build the best environment and hope that your body recovers. But the best way, as you've mentioned, is still the same answer years ago. Avoid it. Try your best to protect yourself. Protect yourself from insult that you don't need. You want to take body shots to get stronger, but headshots when you're training is not warranted, to be honest.
Yeah, true. That's a tough one because a lot of people we use different words to it. That when we say that his chin got weaker, he's got, but once you start getting knocked out a couple of times, you could use that as an excuse that his chin is getting weak. He's got a glass chin and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a lot of people we're seeing perform who are avoiding a lot of sparring back in the gym and doing really well. I think they're sharper, they're stronger at the same time, and their chins are getting stronger as well.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of knowledge that should be spread. I mean, you've been dealing with KHK athletes, MMA fighters, a lot of combat sport athletes. What do you think is going on in the MMA world when you're training with these athletes? That where are they lacking in terms of knowledge, whether it's nutrition side, whether it's a muscle building side, overtraining side, weight training?
Overtraining. I mean, I try to deliver this message to them. It's not overtraining only. It's under recovery that you should focus on. Your body needs to recover. Allow it to adapt. Your body needs that time to get stronger and faster. When when you train hard, it's good. You get faster, you get stronger. But to a certain degree, you don't think that your body will only keep going uphill. Your body needs that time to go downhill in order to be able to climb again. The concept of periodizing the training protocols is something that is lacking in the world of MMA. You want to do everything at the same time. You want to be the best sparring. You want to be the best wrestling. You want to be the fastest. You want to do the best weights. All of that at once. Your body just has a limit. Make sure that you plan it well. Sit with your coach and plan it well. Make sure that you have the right environment around you. The body just has a level, and you know that everything in life has a half-life. Drugs have a half-life, the concept of medicine, but everything in life has a half-life. So if I say the half-life of this medicine is a week, so every week the life of that drug dropped by half. It goes 50%, 25, 12.5, etc. Now, there is a half-life to progression. So if you're peaking, let's say you're strong at a certain level now, there's a half-life to your progression. You're going to plateau at a certain point. So when you plateau, you should know that you're plateauing. Don't keep pushing your body. Allow it to rest. Go downhill, and then it'll raise again. That simple concept, periodization, has been implemented in a lot of sports. And sports-specific training is something that is evolving in all sports. I haven't seen that in MMA yet. I haven't seen the concept of knowing when to schedule it. Yes, there are principles that are being followed, but can get better. I mean, there should be some investment in allowing the science to evolve, as you mentioned at the beginning.
Yeah, and when you talk about recovery, I think there's different methods of recovery that people try to adapt. I mean, there is cry chambers, there's ice bath, ice warm bath mixed together. There's a lot of things that's out there, right?
Cold water immersion, in my opinion, dropping your body in cold water. What does this do to your body? Where does it take your body? Does it make you recover? So if my muscle is injured and I go in ice water, that will definitely shut down the pain. But does it allow your muscles to get stronger? You've just shut down what your body wanted to do. So as we've mentioned in the beginning, you want the body to go through inflammation. If you shut down inflammation, you've just shut down a major part of the whole idea of training. So where do you implement that cold water or cryotherapy, cold water immersion? Where is the right time to do it? The right time to do it is if you're competing tomorrow. If you're competing, if you want the engines to function tomorrow, clean them today. But if you want the engines to get stronger, don't clean them yet. Allow them to get stronger. Let them live that pain, inflammation, to a certain level. The joints, they don't like inflammation, so save them. But the muscles, let the inflammation be there. So the ice water or cold water immersion, you can benefit from it if you're competing tomorrow, or if you're sparring tomorrow, you're wrestling tomorrow, and you want to perform. Your idea of training today and tomorrow is, I want to improve my technique. But if you're training today to get faster or to be stronger, ice water is not your friend. Ice water is your enemy.
Because you want more blood flow going into.
You want that insult, that metabolic stress, that unhealthy environment within the cell for your body to understand that I don't want to live through this again, to become stronger. So if you're trying to be faster or stronger or more powerful, it's not ice water or cold water immersion. But if you're trying to learn a technique and you know that your body's going to be sore tomorrow, but I would still want to go with this coach because this coach is going to teach me new techniques in wrestling, yes, cold water immersion will help you. You'll get rid of all these things in your muscle that give you the pain, so that tomorrow you don't have any pain, so you can train and learn the techniques. But if you're training today to be faster, I ran this much because I want my muscles to adapt to providing my body with energy so I can last longer. Let it be.
So what about injury? When you're having an injury, you're doing your physio and you're doing the recovery part of things, and you're training that to build up, then you shouldn't be using ice bath then too.
Correct. What I tell my patients even, there is acute inflammation and there's chronic disease. There's no chronic inflammation. So inflammation is a phase in our body that does not exceed 2 weeks. Anything that stays more than 2 weeks is something else. It's the aftermath of inflammation that your body is stuck in. There's no active war happening. It's just your body's just stuck somewhere.
So the rice treatment.
Rice treatment is for acute inflammation is perfect, but if your ankle still hurts you 3 or 4 weeks later, no, my friend, there's something wrong with your ankle.
Yeah.
Get it fixed. That continuous, your body is just stuck somewhere and it can't get out. So get it treated. Fighting inflammation is sometimes important, but sometimes you should avoid it. Taking anti-inflammatory drugs, for example.
Right.
We were talking earlier about a surgical procedure called lateral J procedure.
Right.
So in lateral J, what we do is we're providing stability for a joint that doesn't want to be stable. We're just building a stronger bumper in front of the shoulder to allow the arm bone, the humeral head, not to dislocate. Now, this bone fragment, we're waiting for it for a few weeks to heal to the rest of the bone.
Correct.
Do you know what we tell the patient? Don't take anti-inflammatory drugs. We want that inflammation to be in between the two bones so it heals. So inflammation sometimes is an enemy. When we want the process of healing to go through all the phases, I want inflammation, then repair, then remodeling. And once it's there, then I'm good. So if you want that process to continue, don't take anti-inflammatories and don't do anti-inflammatory activities or regimens such as cold water immersion. But what I see athletes do, it's right there. Just jump in the bucket. It's full of ice. I'll do it every day.
Every single day, yeah.
Yeah, your body will adapt. You're not shutting off everything, but you've shut off a major part of what your body wants to experience and live through to get better.
So heating.
Heat is pro-inflammatory, and it depends on where it's applied. But if you're training today, you don't need to apply neither heat or cold. I'll just live the inflammation. Cold water immersion is important, and it should be implemented when needed. For example, I'm a coach, and I got athletes, and today I'm training them a certain technique. But tomorrow I still want to do the same technique. So I want them all to jump in buckets so that soreness in muscle is not going to slow them down tomorrow. Yeah. But today I want to improve their endurance. So I'm doing high intensity interval training. I'm making them run for this time and walk for this time. I want explosive movements for this duration, for example. Yeah. Don't let them immerse their bodies in cold water. You want that soreness to be in the muscle. Let the inflammation be. Give them their supplements. Let them feed their muscles, feed their nervous system, but don't fight the inflammation. Let it be. That inflammation is beneficial.
Sure.
So inflammation is not your enemy all the time.
Yeah. And they always speak about the benefits of sauna as well, right? Like the amount doing sauna, the more you do it, I mean, people used to do it once a month, once a week, but doing it every day, if possible, is also very healthy.
Yeah, a sauna it pushes your body to expending fluids, and the types of sweating are different. We can actively sweat when we exercise. We can passively sweat when we're in saunas.
Right.
So active sweat and passive sweat are two different methods of sweating. One, we lose a lot of electrolytes, and one we don't. So the ones that we don't lose the essential electrolytes or the electrolytes that affect our performance is passively. So, and I always advise for weight cuts, for example, I tell them, sweat it out by sitting somewhere, not running. So if they sit, that passive sweat, you're losing what you don't want, but you're keeping what you want. But if you actively sweat, there goes your potassium and sodium, and it goes in major quantities. And if you lose that this way, you're gonna cramp up or function not to the optimal level the next day. And so active sweat and passive sweat is also a concept that athletes, especially in the weight cut world, they should understand.
The hot bath or the sauna, that's the easiest.
Yes, just sit there and let your body control its temperature. Temperature regulation is something that your body knows how to do, and it knows how to control it fast. So it's a really good way of losing fluids. So allow your body to use that pathway, temperature regulation, instead of actively sweating it out, raising your temperature because you're physically exerting energy, as opposed to having a passive way of losing sweat by changing the environment around you where your body is still comfortable. You don't have to raise your core temperature and force your body to do it. Change the environment and allow your body to passively lose the water. And that really makes a huge difference. How much you lose, though, is also a question. Anything above 10% is a disease. And it's not going to take your body 24 hours. It'll take so much longer to restore what you've lost. So I encourage athletes to take that into consideration. So if you take an athlete that's more higher than 190 centimeters long and is trying to push his body to limits below 70 kilograms, you're killing yourself. I mean, you'll be able to, but your over time is going to affect you significantly. But there are athletes that are reasonable and they're smart, and yes, it takes a lot of willpower to cut a lot of weight, but it doesn't make you a smarter person. You're smart if you're doing it slowly. You're smart if when you cut weight, you're shredded as hell. It means that all that unnecessary weight you've lost already. But if an athlete comes and it takes him forever to cut weight, and you see him after the weight cut and he still has some fat on, why push your body to dehydration if you got fat hanging on your body that you could have lost a long time ago? So why push your physiology to limits where you can have easily lost that fat, that heavy weight on your body that's not even going to help you in the cage?
Absolutely.
Yes, you want to be in a muscular advantage in a fight, more muscular, stronger. Why the fat?
Yeah, no, true. And I think that, so if we say that, like, you got 36 hours before the fight, so you do the weigh-ins and you got 36 hours, what's that amount that you would say is healthy to, I'm not using the word healthy, okay, what is something that you could recover in that 36 hours? I mean, anything more than this, you can't recover in 36 hours, so don't do that, you know?
Yeah, 10%.
10%.
We standardize it 10%. But there are other variables too, like how much muscle you've got, how much fat your body's holding, your electrolyte balance, your kidney function, your genetics also play a role in that. But 10% is safe. If you got a day and a half left, 10% is safe. Now, is it healthy? No, it's not. We all know it's not. But that's how the world of sports has evolved. It forced athletes to reach this level, and it makes the sport a bit more competitive. Yeah. There are a lot of things in the world of sports that medicine has to bend in order to make sure it functions and it runs. One of them is weight cuts. More than 10% is just too much for the body to handle. Hydration, however, 10% is not easy to restore, but you can easily get there if you know for a fact that you lost the 10%, not only fluids, you've lost 10% by cleaning your gut, you've lost 10% by emptying your glycogen stores, and you've lost 10% on top of the last two, you've done weight cuts through water. So you want to make sure all of the above is done right. I know athletes, we talk freely in the sports of MMA especially, that push their body to limits, and before the weigh-ins, and they're still doing their weight cuts, they're constipated. I mean, you could have lost that weight before cutting weight. Yeah. You should have cleaned your gut first. Yeah. And it turns out that when they go and do it, yeah, it's 2 kilograms. They've stored a lot of, so
a lot of weight in the gut. Yeah.
Yes, a lot of weight in the gut. You could have lost that before doing the weight cuts, because when you're dehydrated, your body doesn't want to let go of anything. The glycogen stores, deplete the glycogen stores. And depleting glycogen stores can be done passively by pushing your body through exercise when you can't hydrate and you're hungry is really hard. So you try to gradually get there. So a gradual progression in acute weight cut is also advisable. Glycogen stores can be depleted over 3 or 4 days instead of just pushing everything in one day. Tricking your body into diuresis or passing urine. And that's a smart way that I've seen a lot of athletes do. You hydrate more, you allow your body to block that pathway of retaining water. So there are pathways in our kidneys that will allow you to pass the fluids, and then you stop, but your enzymes and the pathways are still running. So those hormones in our body that control it, and enzymes that allow certain things to happen in our body, will not be there, preventing the diuresis. And nutrition, as I've mentioned, the pyruvate dehydrogenase complex dysfunction, where you stop eating carbohydrates and then all of a sudden you want to use that as your primary source, is not a good idea. But toppling it down to allow your glycogen stores to deplete, and then refeeding again with glycogen, is the best way to do.
Yeah, and one of the things we know about damage, but do this dehydration. How much does that affect your cartilages and your joints?
80% of the solid matter in the skeletal system is water. So that water, if it goes away, the structure of the cartilage is down, is broken down, and it becomes very weak. So water content in cartilage is important. Water content in ligaments is important. But acute dehydration, muscle tear is a definite thing. Tendon injuries is very common in those that are dehydrated. You see them with a lot of endurance athletes that run for hours, and because they're dehydrated, and not only dehydrated, when they rehydrate with large concentrations of sugars. So the body doesn't know exactly what to do. Should I take the sugars in, or should I pull the water out of the body to reach a good balance between sugar and water? So high concentrations of sugar, and they go into more dehydration, and that causes a lot of injuries. And athletes also in fights, I've seen athletes that come with muscle strains and tears just because of their aggressive way of dealing with the weights.
And yeah, I don't know if there's something called spot dehydration, where you know that there's water between your skin and your muscles, there's water in your muscles,
Yeah.
and then there's water in your bones and joints.
Correct.
Like, how can I? Is there a way where we can look and say that, how do I keep my joints healthy with hydrating them?
Yes.
And then take the different kinds of water out.
If you graduate in weight loss, your body will maintain the fluid in your circulatory system, will maintain the fluid within your cells, and will lose that stored within muscle cells holding sugar. So glycogen is a major holder of fluids in muscle that you can easily lose by just not having glycogen in muscle. Every molecule of glycogen or every molecule of sugar will hold 4 molecules of water. So just emptying 1 kilogram of glycogen, you've already lost 5 kilograms. So having this practice of graduating to your goal is better than forcing it over the last 24 hours. And emptying your glycogen stores first, making sure your gut is empty, and then graduating with the dehydration process, making sure your heart and your circulatory system is functioning well. You haven't taken anything from it. Hence the 10%. Yeah. If you push more than 10%, you're taking it from your circulatory system. Your heart is going to work double. Your skin is not where you're losing your fluids. You're losing it from inside your vessels, and you don't want that. That will shock your body. Yeah. It'll take time for the body to understand that. All right, so then since you're taking it from the vessels, I'll take it from the cells. That process will take time. But if you empty the stores of glycogen and graduate to it, that's the easiest way to do it, and that's the healthiest.
And when we look at surgeries as well, I know that you're very busy. I won't take much of your time, but this is a very important topic I want to discuss about is post-surgery. There is something called physiotherapy, and physio is so important. But one of the challenges I've always felt was that you have the physiotherapy that is making sure that, hey, you can walk again, for example, or you got the range of motion. Good job. But then you have the rehab side, which I always mean that is you're back to the environment doing what you're doing. You're back into the jungle. You're hanging the way you're hanging. You're jumping the way you're jumping. I want to be there, after the post-surgery. But there is that sometimes you feel that gap where you get those physiotherapy done, and you get the training, and you're sorted out, and you're back to normal movement. And then to go back to that high-level competition, training, that's something that you reach a point, you're like, when do I jump into that? How do I do another phase 2 transition into it,
Right.
So it's hard to understand that is physio and rehab two different things, or it should be one thing all the way to A to Z.
The physiotherapist should be that bridge between the surgeon and the coach.
Okay.
And a physiotherapist should be trained in sports medicine, should be trained to be not only the acute treatment of regaining range of motion, but that level that I can let you go back to the field now and perform. So there are phases where in sports physiotherapy that have to be filled. As a surgeon, once I'm done, I will give precautions to protect my surgery or my repair. So these precautions are to be followed by the physical therapist, but a proper sports physiotherapist will work around the injury, making sure that areas that are not involved in the procedure are not to be protected due to maybe fixation of a certain part of the body. That area of the body does not lose its function. And there are a lot of principles that they implement. And then the next phase will be a more sports-specific rehabilitation, making sure that the athlete is good enough to go back. The normal physiology has healed, and now we're allowing the body just to get back to that level of performance with certain precautions taken, and then handing over the athlete to the coach or the trainer. So that bridge is can be tailored and can be meticulously tailored for a certain athlete with a certain injury as opposed to someone else, but providing the right team is around the athlete. That can be done, and it should not be taken lightly because that will jeopardize the procedure done, will jeopardize the well-being of the athlete, and even the longevity of him as an athlete.
And what's the we discussed a little bit about the recovery and the importance of inflammation for building the strength and not restricting that growth to happen. But when you do the physiotherapy and your post surgeries, there's a lot of band exercises with the resistance bands. There's exercises in the swimming pools and inside the water, which many advise on that side of things. I know that try them all, but which would be, in your mindset, the right way, because it doesn't still add a lot of pressure to what you're doing?
Yeah, that is a very major part when it comes to lower extremities, hips, knees, and ankles. Even the upper extremities, there's something called blood flow restriction training, and that is a concept being implemented in sports medicine now, where, as we've mentioned earlier,
I was going to ask you about that.
yeah, excellent. And we've talked a little bit earlier about not fighting inflammation in muscles, because inflammation is very important and a very cardinal part of the development. So we want the muscles to be damaged. We want the muscles to be under mechanical load, such as when wrestling, etc. And we also want the muscles to go through metabolic stress. And that metabolic stress happens because of how much of energy the muscle has and how much it will require to go to different pathways to get that energy. And when it goes to certain pathways, it just piles up all that stress, oxidation, inflammation. It piles that up, and that will build an environment of adaptation. Now, we can create that with blood flow restriction. By slowing down the blood flow to a muscle, you've made sure that all that waste will stay there, and the oxygen is not going to reach as fast. That environment itself makes the muscle believe that it's getting a higher resistance or higher load, and that will allow us to load a muscle without affecting the joint. And I do encourage my physiotherapists that treat my patients in lower or upper extremities, especially athletes, to utilize those modalities using blood flow restriction, for example, or zero gravity treadmills. If I want an athlete to run and maintain their endurance, but I don't want that impact on a joint or a cartilage that I've repaired. So the zero gravity treadmills come in. They lift the limb or the body of the athlete just enough to make their weight zero, but they still feel that impact of touching the ground, but it's not the impact that hits the joints. Or the underwater treadmills that give the resistance while running and will double that resistance to the joints, so to the muscles, not the joints. So yes, there are modalities meant for athletes, especially when it comes to a recreational athlete. It doesn't really make much difference if they recover in 6 months or a year. But to an athlete, it's a whole career. So when athletes are to be for rehab, it's very important to make sure rehab is done with the right people so that they can go back to sports. And you cannot complete a whole circle without making sure everybody's around you with following the same steps. So yes, that's a big obstacle. It's one of the obstacles that every sports surgeon, in my opinion, faces. We're making sure that the right people are around him, but it's evolving and it's getting there.
And one thing I'm very impressed about the blood flow restriction training is also that this is mentally one thing why we as athletes, or not me anymore, but athletes do overtrain, is because they're hunting for that feeling where they feel like I can't do it anymore. And they keep hunting for it, and their body doesn't achieve that. And they're like, I gotta do more. I feel like 3 hours is not good enough. I'm gonna go for my 4th hours until I cannot do anymore. But then you do the blood flow restriction diet and you do that in 20 squats, and you're like, I feel like I did 100 squats,
Exactly.
And you get that feeling, and mentally you're like, I got it there, so I don't really have to.
Even to a cellular level, you've done something that your body has not lived through again. I mean, before, and you can repeat it as long as you need. Now, for those that are normal, blood flow restriction did not prove any difference than those that don't do it. But those that are injured, especially, and I agree with you, that even evidence shows us a lot of significant improvement in those that have joints that you can't load, ligaments that you can't load, or muscles you can't load. Certain areas of the body you can't load, but you still want to train the rest of the body. Blood flow restriction is the way to go, and I've done it with a lot of patients of mine, and it actually shows a lot of improvement in terms of the return to sport, the performance level when they go back to sport, blood flow restriction, zero gravity treadmills, underwater treadmills. There are a lot of modalities that you can work around for athletes especially.
And if you're not injured, because I'm always worried about the knee part, right? Although I've been just looking at my shoulders more, but I'm always worried about the knee injuries more than anything else. Where I feel like that could end a lot of careers, with the knee injury in any sport. But when you're looking at the knee injury, when you look at the prevention side of it, there's a saying that we always use in sports, right? Like in any fitness world, like you have to stress the muscle to break it down and build a better one. Similar to what we spoke about the bone as well, the same idea. But then is there something that we're saying that, but there's one part, which is a knee joint, that we're saying don't stress it or don't put pressure on it.
Yes.
And that's happening only, we are reversing the idea for it. But then there's some school of thought, like the knees to toes guy. I don't know if you follow this guy. So he says that we never strengthen our knees because we don't put pressure on it. And we are taught not to put pressure on it. So even when we do squats, they ask us, do not take your knees over your toes. So he says that's why we never have strengthened our knees, and we're strengthening our legs, and we're doing all the exercise which are made in a way that do not put stress on the knees. So he starts saying that let's do an exercise which is everything related to knees over toes. So the movement where you're.
But that's just another way of going to wear and tear. Cartilage is not like muscle. Muscle is rich in blood supply. Cartilage has barely enough nutrients coming from all around it, but it does not have vessels. Cartilage is avascular. That's why when we have donors of body parts, when it comes to bone and cartilage, especially cartilage, we don't need to use drugs to suppress the immune system as opposed to using them with kidneys and liver, because they're acellular. They're avascular, and they're very low in cells. So you can have a joint that's stronger, but with progressive overloading. If you overload the cartilage a lot, that's going to push to the limit of wear and tear. So the cartilage can go both ways. It can go stronger or can just break down as a structure. So that spot or that line that separates the two is a bit hazy. As a physician, even I can't really tell you this much load will make your cartilage stronger. But if you bypass this line, your cartilage is gonna wear out. We can't really draw that line, but the athlete can be within the safe zone of making sure the load I'm putting on my knees is just enough to allow my cartilage to be stronger. But if you, like you mentioned, if I do what they call sissy squats, where the knees go in front of the foot, that's going to wear the cartilage definitely. So that excessive load on the cartilage is something you want to avoid.
Yeah, yeah. Now, so we're looking at cartilages that can get stronger.
Yeah.
Cartilages can get you can get stronger.
Yeah.
And but at the same time, does the recovery takes longer than the muscle recoveries?
Definitely, cartilage takes a very long time to regenerate, and because it has less cells, if you lose a part of the cartilage, you lose with it the only few cells you have that can regenerate the medium. So by losing a small part of the cartilage, that part is not going to grow back. So maintaining and preventing injury is better than having an area with no cartilage. There is nothing to substitute that area.
No, true. And for just to the last thing, we have a lot of fighters in Bahrain. We have some of the best athletes in the world currently here in Bahrain at KHK team. What would be something that you would like to tell them as these athletes and a lot of young kids coming up and training and getting into combat sports at that young age? I don't know. I mean, when you reach the age of 20 and above, that's a different world where you're in a professional world. You have all of this support around you. But at the young age, at 11, 12, 13, I mean, these kids are full of passion, and they're not professional, so they're not in that world where you have the nutritionist. It's that transition period, they must be in the gyms, they must be in schools, they must be training in different ways, and they don't have that right circle around them. But at that age, what are the right lifestyle to live at the younger age than the ones like ours, whether it's 20, 30, 40,
Those the younger population, those in the world of martial arts, they should understand that with any sport comes injuries and comes disabilities that they don't want to go through in the future in whatever sports they choose when it comes to combat sports. So it's always advised that from the beginning you make sure you got the right coach to support you. I mean, even if it's a local gym, make sure that the gym you're going to or the club that you're going to is one that has the right people to ask questions. Educate yourself. See what it takes to be a proper athlete. It takes a lot of reading and it takes a lot of education for an athlete to become elite. These tiny things that you see not important in that level will eventually become the things that you focus on more when you see that the only difference between you and an elite professional is a nutritionist or is a physiotherapist or is a physician. So these things that have to do with your health are the major parts of your life as a professional athlete.
Oh, perfect. Dr. Aljowder, thank you very much. Thank you
My
for your
pleasure.
time. I
Thank
would
you for
love
having
to
me.
go on for hours just asking you questions because I'm like, I got to note everything down, but that's what I love to do. I mean, I love talking to you, and hopefully I want to do this much more for myself personally as well as for the people who will be listening.
And I'm your personal doctor anytime, man.
Thank you very much.
All right, my pleasure. Have a good one.